You are listening to Where is the Line? The stories you will hear will be depraved, disturbing, and true. If you are easily unsettled, you may find this program offensive. And if you are under the age of 18, fuck off.
During the transference of the head on the new body, the head will be cooled to 10 degrees Celsius and will be bloodless. It will be as dead as it gets, clinically gone. Now, I expect that upon reawakening, the subjects will report a full-blown near-death experience. When this happens, we will have final proof that once you die, once the brain dies, consciousness survives.
Everybody drinking blood, everybody eating brains. Some monster party. Everybody eating flesh, everybody breaking bones. Some monster party.
Thank you for listening to episode 13 of Where is the Line? My name is Kevin, and with me today is my dear friend and inventor of the popular children's game Hide and Go Hunch, Samantha. Say something disturbing, Samantha.
Life extension.
Life extension. When you hear the phrase life extension, honk your horn. Samantha is not the only person here with me today. There's a couple of guys creeping around in the room. On loan from the Fringe Radio Network's Earth Oddity Podcast.
That's right.
Christopher, Tiny Sullivan, and John Long.
How's everybody doing?
Yes, thanks for having us on.
Yes, thank you.
Arousing applause. Yes, thank you very much.
Earth Oddity. I know I've told you, Tiny. It's one of my favorite podcasts. Since I found out about it, I honestly have not missed an episode.
Wow.
Since then.
Well, bless your heart.
That's truly an honor because I feel like y'all's show sounds better, so much better than ours.
Oh yeah, definitely sounds way better than ours.
That is high praise.
And that's not anything against you, Tiny, by the way. There's no rift between me and Tiny and his production skills. But when you're working with me, it's tough to make it sound good. So
for the just handful of people out there that have never heard Earth Oddity, tell us what it's about.
It is a show where we talk about odd news, and we also, I guess that's it.
Yeah, it's pretty much just we find
odd news.
What I consider to be funny and odd news stories, talk about them, discuss them. I share some embarrassing details from my personal life, and we move on. It goes on every week, and it's pretty fun. We are the #1 podcast in New Zealand, as far as the numbers I've seen. And we're climbing the charts in America, so sooner or later we'll be #1 here. Once we capture all of the Where's the Line listeners. So.
Yeah, all 12 or so. Yeah, you could absolutely.
That would double our audience.
You could expect your numbers to go up by 5.
They're great.
That would be a 5% jump for us.
Yes,
it could happen.
I think so. That would be awesome.
Hey, thank you two for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having us. It's a real honor.
Inspired by Earth Oddity, we've decided that we're going to try to keep a schedule from now on. We're not just going to record an episode and put it out whenever the hell we feel like it.
No more willy-nilly.
No more willy-nilly. From now on, Where is the Line will drop on the 13th of every month.
Oh.
Wow.
How
appropriate. Look forward to that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. I'll schedule that on my calendar.
You're going to schedule your first full listening of an episode of Where is the Line on your calendar.
Well, like I said,
John's a little squeamish.
I got a very, tender stomach, so it's big, but it's tender. So I've reached my line several times listening to episodes, and I've had to go, hey, guys, I'm right here. This is where I can't listen. So
the one that got me was, and I finished the episode because I'm a real man and tough.
Yes.
But bisected penises, that nearly got me.
Yeah. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
All right, so are we ready to get into this episode?
Yes.
I am.
Let's do it. This feels so awkward. I have to be more
Is it me? I hope it's not me.
It's me. I do this every time.
It's Kevin.
Yeah.
I feel totally great.
You're probably stoned.
Don't say that. No.
Yeah, if you say no and then start giggling, you're totally stoned.
That's right. Dead giveaway.
I have no cops in my family, so.
I am a cop. No, I'm just kidding. I'm undercover. This was all. Everybody, stick them up.
This whole Earth Oddity podcast
It's here to sting.
It was a big undercover operation to catch Samantha stoned.
All
right. Humans have been trying to take the heads off of one thing and put it onto another thing for at least 111 years. At least that's how long people who know what they're doing have been trying to do it. And there's something that's just innately disconcerting about having someone else's body part on yourself or on someone to whom that body part wasn't originally intended for.
Right.
And of course, this was the basis of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It was something that was more poignantly covered in 1997's Oscar-nominated film Face Off with John Travolta.
Yes.
And Nicolas Cage.
That's a classic.
Do you know what it was nominated for?
I would say best action scene.
It was nominated for special effects sound editing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
Still, it's Oscar-nominated.
Yeah.
So most people have grown comfortable with the idea of organ transplants. It's something that people were really uncomfortable with that when we started doing it, but by now it seems kind of commonplace. Kidney transplants, even heart transplants, don't really faze people like the idea of a head transplant does. And a head transplant is something that's never been done before.
To a human.
To a human. To a living human. But right now there's an Italian neurosurgeon who says he's ready to give this a try. And that's what we're talking about today. Dr. Sergio Canavero, the maybe not as crazy as he seems head transplant guy.
I like to think mad genius.
Mad genius. He's got the look.
He does.
He does, for sure.
And he's got a lot of charisma, too. I watched his TED Talk on the way over here. He has a way of lulling you in and making you think, yeah, let's do this.
Well, I think that I was on the let's do this page before he said that. I mean,
what's the worst that can happen? It's just a head.
You wake up paralyzed, if you wake up.
Yeah, right. But, the first guy who was going to have it happen, he was pretty much paralyzed anyways. So, it seems like a win-win. But then he met that really hot girl and decided not to have it. I don't need to jump
Are we
ahead.
jumping ahead?
No. I mean, we can.
That's the most fascinating part of the story to me.
We'll just chop this up and put it in an order that makes sense later on.
Okay.
Yeah. Like that dude met that really beautiful girl, and all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm good how I am.
Has a kid, by the way.
Yes, right.
That
That's
has a
right.
way of giving you perspective as well.
Yeah.
So what was this guy's name?
Yes.
Sergio.
And we're talking about Valery Spiridonov.
Yes, Valery.
He is a Russian. He's a CG artist and a video game programmer. And he suffers from shit. Sorry.
Yeah,
I suffer from that as well.
Suffer from that too. Especially after chili night.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Okay. Who suffers from Wernicke-Hoffman disease, which is a muscle wasting condition.
Wow. I didn't know he had Dustin Hoffman disease. I will take a podcast off the rails in a heartbeat, so you just have to excuse me.
No, it's fine.
All right.
So, Dr. Sergio has said that he believes the key to performing the first successful head transplant does lie in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
He's never read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. No, that's true. He's never read it.
The good doctor's
No,
never read it.
Sergio Canavero, unless he's read it in the past 2 years, he's never read it.
Well,
Well, that's disturbing.
Not too long ago, he was Skyping with someone, a journalist, and they said that Dr. Sergio, which is what I'm going to call him, was shaking a gray, tattered book that was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, rattling off that it held the key. And would you like to hear about the birth of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? So you guys, it's 1816, which was known as the year without a summer. And this is because of the eruption of Mount Tambora. When this volcano erupted in 1816, it released tons of ash, rock, and sulfuric dust into the air. So this dramatically lowered temperatures across most of the world that year. Weather was really shitty all over the place. In America, in Europe, it was snowing red snow in Italy. That summer, Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin gathered in Lake Geneva, Switzerland, at a very large home called Villa Diodati, with her friends. Amongst this group was her lover, Percy Shelley, who was married to someone else at the time, by the way. The poet Lord Byron was there, and a couple of other people. They had had all these outdoor activities planned, and they couldn't do any of them. They were confined to this large mansion where they spent their time doing drugs. They were making up stories and having orgies. So the group passed their time indoors by having illuminating discussions about current scientific theories. They were especially fascinated by the experiments with electricity carried out by Luigi Galvani, and he conducted experiments that caused muscle convulsions in dead frogs by using electrical charges. In 1803...
Is that really an experiment?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like...
shocking dead frogs?
Yeah, is that... I mean, that's all he was doing, right?
Well, I mean, this is back in the 1700s. I would imagine if something's dead and all of a sudden this new discovery, electricity, is making this thing jump around.
Yeah, that's...
True.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Well,
like,
I
heck,
guess-
yeah.
There was a looser definition of experiment back then.
Come on, that's an experiment. And
I would have been an amazing scientist back then.
I'm
Yeah, I
this
could
far
shock
away
all
from...
kinds of dead shit.
right.
I'm this far away from accusing that person of witchcraft. I've seen that.
it had never been done before. So, in 1803, Aldini, Galvani's nephew, carried out a spectacular demonstration of the technique on the body of an executed criminal in London. Describing the effects of the electrical stimulus, a reporter stated, "The left eye actually opened." So, Mary Shelley and her friends are discussing these experiments, and they speculate on the possibility of bringing dead matter back to life by using electrical impulses. After all the drugs and all the talk of science, Lord Byron wanted to take the group into a different direction. He proposed that each member of the party should write a horror story. So later that night, after all the drugs and talk of scientific experiments, Mary has a nightmare. The next day, she tells the group this tale of a scientist who creates a monstrous creature by sewing up a bunch of body parts and bringing the dead flesh to life by way of electrical currents. And in 1818, Mary published, and this was anonymously at first, The Modern Prometheus, or what is known as Frankenstein.
So really what we need to do is just get a bunch of drugs, find like a secluded place, just all get together. We'll write the next great novel, right?
I thought you were going to say shock some frogs.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, we could mix a little bit of that in there. I don't know. Coming down from a DMT trip or something. You know?
I had actually heard of the competition that they had between them. Never with that kind of detail, though.
Yeah. I had no idea there was an orgy. So
Oh,
that gets the creative juices flowing. You
there was
know?
a lot of orgies that weekend.
Wow. Okay.
So even though Dr. Sergio has not read Frankenstein, apparently, he is tremendously inspired by it.
He is, and he even used quotes from Frankenstein at the beginning of his book. He wrote a book called, I believe the title was just Head Transplant.
Oh. What a
Okay, now that-
lame title. I would have been Frankenstein 2 Electric Boogaloo, but whatever.
And he clearly made the cover of this book himself. Because
What's it look like?
he does this too. Like if you look at his TED Talk, he needs to get just some college graphic design intern or something to make this shit for him, because his PowerPoint presentations are clearly done through Microsoft Paint or something. And the cover of his book is the same way. It's a picture of him split down the middle, so you see his right half, and the left half is his hero, Dr. Robert White.
It's like a really bad Photoshop or whatever.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not even a Photoshop. They're not even trying to be put together. It's just like half of one man's face, half of another man's face.
Push.
There's a black line in the middle, and I don't believe they're even centered with each other. I think one is a little higher than the other one.
That's me if I wrote a book.
I was just about to say, that sounds like the cover art that I do for Earth Oddity every week.
So human head transplants have been a really long time coming. All the way back in 1894, there was a French college student named Alexis Carrel, and he became really interested in how to repair blood vessels because the French president had gotten stabbed when he was in medical school. And he got stabbed in a spot where it severed the vein that was supplying blood to his liver. But the French president died of blood loss, and the reason he died was that nobody knew how to reconnect blood vessels back then. So he got obsessed with this idea of how he's going to how to fix these blood vessels, how to mend them back together. And he actually went and started hanging out with a seamstress who was known for making these silk doilies and things.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're looking for how to sew things back together, you could do a lot worse than a seamstress, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely logical.
But I guess that's, you know, I guess it's nice that as a surgeon, a highly educated guy, he was willing to say, look, there are people who know more about sewing things than me. You don't get, there's a lot of educated people just won't do that.
Oh, yeah. No, for real.
But anyway, he goes and meets with this seamstress, and she teaches him how to do all these very complicated sewing patterns and things. And he comes up with a way to sew blood vessels back together without puncturing the inside of the vessel. So he's managing to just kind of nick the outside with a silk thread and then pull these veins together. And that works. You know, as always happens, he feels like this is something he can do. And so he starts doing this to dogs. I don't know. Why is it always dogs?
I think they're readily available. Right.
Well, so are possums.
Yeah, but you got to catch a possum. You can tame a dog.
Yeah, you can.
A dog will come up to you.
Right.
Especially if you have peanut butter. So
True. Yeah. Yes. Do a lot more to you if you got peanut butter, apparently.
It'll lick your wounds clean.
That's right. Exactly.
So Alexis Carrel, he's working on this way to suture these veins back together, these blood vessels back together, and he tries this out on a dog. And this is the first time that we know of that somebody has taken the head off of one thing and put it onto the head of another thing. So what he did is he cut the head off of one dog, put it onto the body of another dog. Now, he had no intention of this dog ever playing fetch again. He was just sewing the arteries back together.
Just getting a little practice in.
Yeah. So when he sewed this dog's head onto the other body, the head showed some signs of being responsive, but it died a few hours later. I really don't like animal cruelty or medical experiments, but there's just no way to talk about this without getting into it.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things, you know, like John said, he can't make it through an episode, and this is the first thing that I've ever looked at that was I had trouble getting through it.
Wow.
we're approaching the line, apparently.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not going to say that we've reached the line, but so it doesn't get any better for dogs. I'm just trying to blow through some of this stuff. I don't want to dwell on the dog torture too much, but
yes, let's get to the chimps.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, that gets worse. Monkeys. Oh man. So 50 years after Alexis Carrel does this, there's a Soviet surgeon who starts transplanting the upper torsos of small dogs onto the bodies of larger dogs. And he's actually able to keep these upper torsos of these small dogs alive for a month. And so these upper torsos, I mean, they're not just hanging there. It's not as though the blood is just flowing through and they're technically alive. They're actually able to lap up water and things, and they're responsive. Their eyes can track movements and things. So you have a dog that's from the hind legs, everything there and back, the tail and everything's removed, and what's left has been sewn onto the spinal column of a larger dog, and the dogs were able to survive that way for up to a month.
Yeah, and that procedure that Dr. Vladimir Dimitrov did was well documented by Life magazine. They heard that he was going to do this, and in 1959 they sent one of their photographers to Soviet Russia to take several pictures, and they even filmed the procedure, which is available online. And this particular time that they did this, Dr. Vladimir Dimitrov was using a large dog named, God, it makes me so sad, Brodyaga, which means tramp. And the tinier dog was Shavka that they cut, the upper torso off and put it onto Brodyaga's back. Yeah, sure enough, he was able to attach it, and the top dog was lapping water, and the bottom dog was lapping water, and they both were very, very depressed and sad. I could tell. I watched it. So right before the surgery, Dr. Dimitrov was in the surgery room with the Life magazine photographer, and another dog came trotting into the room, and it was very happy and seemed very healthy. Dimitrov asked the reporter, "You notice anything about this dog? Anything strange?" The Life magazine guy was like, "No, that looks like a normal dog." And so then the doctor was like, "Ha! He just had 2 hearts in him the other day, and I took one out.
Let me just flex on you, a little photographer, just removing hearts over here in Russia.
He had added a second heart just to see if he could. The dog was fine, and about 2 days later, he removed that additional heart and put the dog back together, and he was very proud of that.
Wow.
Didn't he also take this show on the road at one point?
Did he?
He took this show on the road, I guess, to get funding for his experiments. And at one point, he had his 2-headed dog up there, and he fed the dog. And one of the head is eating the food, and the other head is too. But to the horror of all the scientists present, the food is just like coming out of his neck hole.
Oh, they could have sewed up too good. That's tough look right there for your experiment. Oh.
That's bringing us up to the mid-'60s when an incredibly controversial neurosurgeon named Dr. Robert White starts doing some things that, by a lot of people's estimations, might be indefensible. One of the first things he did, or one of the first of these things that he did, was that he took the brains from several dogs, just the brains, and grafted them into the circulatory systems of other living dogs. This is one of the more disturbing things to me in this whole thing, because when they monitored these brains, they seemed to be functioning normally. I cannot even imagine. I mean,
imagine being a mind with
just
no body.
A brain.
Yeah.
You can't see anything. You can't hear anything.
Right.
But you're conscious.
I work with some people like that.
Maybe it's just me. That's like
I'm
the most horrifying
absolutely-
thing I think I've ever
horrifying.
heard.
That's absolutely
Just
horrifying.
having my brain just grafted
Yeah.
onto something. I mean, because there's no nerve endings on your brain. You can't even feel anything.
Wow.
You're just a conscious nothing.
Unless you're Krang. Sorry.
I've talked about going as Krang with Liz because she's so tiny. I was like, look, I'll just stand up real straight and we'll fix you a little box and you can just sit in it.
Yeah.
And we'll just wrap a pink sheet around you and you just tell me where to go.
Bad idea.
So Dr. White is most famous for an experiment that he conducted in the 70s where he connected the head of one monkey to the body of another monkey. These were both macaque monkeys. I've heard that said macaw, I feel like.
I feel like I have too,
Yeah.
but don't trust me.
Yeah, but no, it's pronounced macaque because I wrote it down phonetically and it looks really funny.
All right.
I think religious people are the ones who try to call it macaw.
I think so. Right. You might be right about that.
Like my wife, she pronounced it shizu.
So, like Dr. Carell that we were talking about earlier, Dr. White did not make any attempt to connect the spinal cord back together. He just connected back the major blood vessels. So the monkey was paralyzed, but this experiment was videotaped, and the monkey was clearly conscious after being connected to this other body. It was able to eat, and there's videos that show that it was able to track movements with its eyes. And have you ever seen this video?
No.
I have.
What are you guys searching on the internet? Goodness gracious.
You have no idea.
I mean, I was watching Faces of Death when I was a kid.
Oh, no.
My mom just thought it was like Friday the 13th or something.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I think that this video is on that original Faces of Death. I might be wrong.
See, I watched somebody die in real life, and that just kind of tied it. I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm done with watching people die. So
Way to bring down the podcast.
I'm just saying, that's why I never, because like all my friends would be like, we need to watch the new Faces of Death. You know, got VHS tape or whatever. I'm like, no, man, no, I'm good.
And John grabs him by the collar. I've seen Faces of Death.
I can tell you what it
You
really
little
looks and
punk.
sounds like.
I am the face of death.
That's right. So that's what I've been anti-death since then. So
This monkey, if you do watch that video, it's got an expression on its face that seems very appropriate for the circumstances that it has found itself in. It just looks horrified.
Yeah,
yeah, that's understandable. Little monkey buddy, I'm sorry.
I know.
Dr. White was quoted as saying, "Chimping ain't easy."
Oh.
Was that over the line? I'm sorry.
You named that monkey Curious George for sure. You know? I'm sorry. I'm a horrible person. I try to be a good person, but I'm a horrible person. I told you that today, Johnny. I'm just a horrible person. I can't stop myself from being one.
So that brings us all the way up to the new player in town, which is Dr. Sergio Canavero. So Sergio Canavero was hoping to build on all of these aforementioned predecessors of his. Dr. White, in particular, seems to be a hero of his. So White's focus was on the brain, and it seems like White's primary goal was to find a way to maintain neurological functions in the absence of a living body. And he was largely successful in doing that. I mean, if you watch the video of that monkey, it clearly knows what's going on. Might not understand what's happened, but it knows something's wrong. And so Sergio Canavero wants to combine what Dr. White learned with his own area of research, which has to do with the mending of the spinal cord. And Dr. Canavero thinks that he is ready to perform the world's first ever human head transplant. And what's unfortunate about this is that Canavero is kind of the face of head transplants. Like, was that a pun? Damn
It was.
Shit.
It was. I appreciate it.
I don't like puns.
Which is a shame because you're so good at them.
No.
That was effortless.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, it was perfect. really.
effortless as in unintended.
Unintended puns are the best ones, though, really.
So you got something to say about Dr. Sergio's looks?
Yeah, so this is not the guy that you want to be the face of this kind of thing. I mean, he looks exactly like the kind of guy that wants to cut somebody's head off and put it on somebody else.
Yeah.
He's bald. If you haven't seen pictures of him, he's bald. He's got little tiny round glasses. He's weirdly muscular.
He is. I noticed that.
He hits the gym.
He looks
definitely hits the
looks
gym.
like the medical equivalent of Walter White.
And he seems to dress in black a lot, black turtlenecks in particular. So
That bothers me. I'm not a turtleneck. I don't like turtlenecks.
John was on board until he got the turtlenecks.
Right. I can handle everything else, but turtlenecks is that's where my line is.
I tell you what, if I was ever in a room with him, I might want to wear a turtleneck because I don't want him looking at my
Sizing you up. He's got a little neck to spare over there. You know? Like T.J. Yeldon had a super long neck when he played for Alabama. I don't know, I'd be the only one who recognized that, but he had a super long neck. So, like, he would be a good candidate, by the way. Right. Just saying.
I'm not sure if long neck is part of their vetting process for candidates for head
It would be for
transplantation.
me. That's why I would be like, I need, if I mess up, I don't cut it exactly straight. I got to go back and recut. I want a little extra length there.
I kind of like the idea of John doing this, though, and like, oh, we didn't do it straight that time. It's all right. We got there's extra there, so we'll just cut off.
Right. We got a little
another
extra
slide.
room to work with.
And then the guy wakes up and his head's just
like
directly
right
on the shoulders. Because John kept having cut slices out.
Excuse me, sir. Before we show you the mirror, let me just want to talk to you a little bit. Had a little difficulty getting your neck sawed off just right. So, good news is we got everything attached. You're just missing a little bit of neck. You don't have an Adam's apple anymore, okay?
You fix most of that up with makeup. You put a little shading down there
you're
so it
gonna
looks
be
like you got more
Oh,
shadows
totally.
right there.
Contouring is
Yeah,
contouring.
huge.
Exactly. You want to wear a V-neck, something like that.
When merging in traffic, you're going to need to use your mirrors.
That's right.
Yeah, so Canavero he's not doing his cause any favors by presenting himself the way that he does. A Hawaiian shirt maybe would help him out a little bit. Just add some color to his wardrobe.
Trying to look so menacing and mad scientist-like.
Yeah, I mean, you would be hard-pressed to make yourself look more like a mad scientist than he just looks.
Hey, man, you're choosing to look this way, all right? Yeah. Like, you have a mirror,
Right. I'm just a redneck from Alabama, but I kind of like the idea that he's embraced this mad scientist persona.
What if he came out like sleeveless shirts, like just standard redneck attire, like a naturalized shirt with the sleeves all cut down the sides, like they do, and like jean shorts and flip flops on. I'm here to do your head surgery. Yeah.
Here's a clip of Sergio Canavero. All right, well, this is an interesting clip to me. It's only 40 seconds.
Spinal cord injury releases 26,000 newtons of force.
So
This is
Canavero's holding
spinal
up 2 bananas. He just
It's
squished one.
unrecoverable. This is what happens in Gemini. Hop.
And he slices through the other one with a sharp knife.
The very sharp blade that will be used will release less than 10 newtons of force. That banana can be brought back to life, but this can.
He's not putting either one of those bananas back together. That's
very interesting.
A terrible example.
Right.
He smashes one banana with his hand, he cuts the other one through the middle, and then he says, I can't put the smashed one back together, but I can put this one back together.
Right.
He can't put either one of those bananas
I mean,
I feel like maybe the point he's going for is a controlled injury is easier to repair than a freak accident.
Exactly.
Yes, but that is a terrible, a banana is a horrible
I
example.
would like for to put the banana back together.
I thought it was a great example. And he mentions the Gemini Project, which is where Dr. Sergio Canavero plans on. His whole thing is you have to have a very special knife. The knife has to be so sharp and just so to be able to slice through all those nerve bundles very cleanly. And his big thing is the use of a special gel, PEG, or polyethylene glycol, which Canavero calls his glue. And this is to help the reattachment of the hundreds of nerves that require reattachment. The PEG, or polyethylene glycol, allows the two severed pieces of spinal cord to achieve fusion.
This is the big sticking point for a lot of people, because I think everybody believes that they can reattach these arteries and blood vessels.
But the nerves,
Right.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Yes.
I mean, this bundle of millions of fibers that
Exactly.
are within the spinal column has always been the sticking point.
Because you cannot reattach those manually. There's not enough time to do it.
Well, it just can't be done.
Yeah, it just can't be done.
It is not possible
Well, that's
to
what
reconnect all of
that's what I'm
those.
saying.
And so that's what's always
Yeah.
been the problem
Can't be done.
with spinal injuries. I mean, the closest that we've come to doing anything remotely like reconnecting these things is through stem cells, which really, stem cells have a lot of applicability to other types of operations, but when it comes to spinal injuries, if you don't know, stem cells will essentially take on the functions of the cells that they come into contact with. And that's where a lot of the issue comes with stem cells, because it's how a lot of the organs in forming fetuses get made, is because these stem cells turn into the things that they need to be. But when it comes to the spinal column, the best thing that they've been able to do is kind of make a bridge. So you have a spinal column that has, or a spinal cord that has injuries. They insert the stem cells around it, and it doesn't fuse the spinal cord back together, but what it does is it takes one end and kind of creates a bridge over across to the other end, bypassing that injured area. And so, but they're not good enough at it for it to be really worthwhile when it comes to the spinal cord. So it's like if you take the Autobahn and you just cut off a whole big section of it, and then you just put a little sidewalk down the middle, and then everybody gets to that point, and then they just have to take the sidewalk.
Great example.
That's the best thing I
No,
could come
I'm
up with. I
serious.
couldn't
I
think of
mean it.
I think that
you
was-
were.
I actually thought it
absolutely
was
not
a really
serious.
good
No,
one.
I was.
I was thinking of laying down ladders across the gap.
Yeah, something like that.
I meant it.
Oh, I thought we were going for Dukes of Hazzard, like jumping over it first, but I saw where you were getting to
Yeah, so they put the Dixie horns on the
on the stem cell. Them stem cell boys are at it again.
And the whole thing with most spinal cord injuries is that they are very messy.
And that's part of it too, because usually spinal cord injuries come from car wrecks or things like that, and they get smashed and things. And a big problem with spinal cord injuries is that when they get crushed or severed, they tend to form cysts, which just complicates everything further. So even if you were able to reattach them, you've got these dead ends with these cysts on them. And so that's why Sergio Canavero says that one of the most important parts of what he's trying to do is you've got to make a very clean cut through all of these fibers in the spinal cord without exerting a whole lot of pressure on it too. So it's one thing to just make a clean slice, but it's another thing to do it without smashing the fibers underneath the top ones that you're cutting on.
Yeah.
Then you're screwing up the ones under those.
Exactly.
So
The special knife comes into play.
the special diamond-tipped knife
Yes.
comes into play.
Can you get those at Williams-Sonoma?
I don't think so.
You buy them at the flea market.
Sharper image.
You get a butterfly knife with a diamond tip on it at the flea market. You don't go to Tannehill Trade Days or anything. Not the only one. Tiny knows what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. You cut this out, but my brother-in-law, he's got like a trash can full of swords that he got when he was like 13. You know,
I didn't know that. He collected swords.
Yeah, and he was like, "What am I going to do with all these?" And I told him, I was like, "You take those down to Tannehill Trade Days one day,
right.
You will sell every single one
right.
of them."
Oh, yes. Tell him to attach a little rebel flag to him. He can double the price on it. So we got to have a diamond tip knife.
Yes, the diamond tip knife. Tell us, Kevin.
Okay. So here is how the entire head transplant operation would take place.
Theoretically,
if they're able to do it. So first, obviously, you need two patients. One of them is going to be essentially brain dead, and they're going to be the one that donates the body. The other patient is going to have a viable brain, but they're going to be in the opposite situation. There's something wrong with the body, a spinal injury, degenerative muscle disease, something. Both of these people, and this whole procedure is outlined in Canavero's book, Head Transplant.
Is that in English?
It is in English.
Okay.
Wow. It is.
Can you get it on Kindle?
Yep. Yep, that's where I read it. So the two patients are going to be situated in an operating room right next to each other. And there's going to be two teams of surgeons in the rooms, one for each patient. And the first thing that's going to happen is that both of these patients are going to have tracheotomies so that they can continue supplying oxygen to both of the patients while they're severing their trachea and things and make it so they can't breathe naturally. They're going to affix both of these heads into specially made devices. So the body donor's head is going to go into a device and be clamped into it so that as soon as they sever the head, it can be moved away. What they're going to do with the person with a viable brain, though, is they're actually going to have a sort of a crane device, I think, attached to the ceiling. And they're going to have the person's head clamped into that so that when they cut this person's head off, they can actually, probably like these boom arms that we have, the microphones here, swivel it around to the other body and hold it
right in place.
Very still so that it gets in place. So they're going to put thermometers into both the bodies. They got to monitor the temperature.
Up the butt?
Yes, they are both going to have thermometers.
Do you know the difference between a rectal thermometer and an oral thermometer?
Yeah, one of them's got a big end.
I was going to say the taste.
I knew that one.
I knew that.
Damn it.
My wife's a nurse. It's an old joke.
You ever heard that one?
Feel free to use it.
I've never.
John made that one up.
No. That's a good one, though. I could stop myself from saying it, by the way. That's anytime I hear a rectal thermometer, I have to come out with that.
Okay, so they're taking their temperature.
So they've got their rectal thermometers in.
Yes.
And so they will cool the head with a viable brain in it to 10 degrees Celsius. So, but on the body of the person that's donating just their body, they only cool the part of the neck that they plan to cut through. And then they start cutting through both of these people's necks simultaneously.
Quick question. The donor body, is he going to be brain dead when they go to sawing his head off?
Oh, yeah.
Because that opens up a lot of ethical quandaries, you know?
He would have been brain dead before they even willed him in there.
Right.
That's kind of a prerequisite for a donor. You can't just be like, I just want to be a donor body.
Just bring me up. Tired of living. Just you can have my body.
Well, I mean, we know how people operate, especially people of means.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, considering and this surgery is going to cost in the neighborhood of $10 million.
Oh, I read.
Oh, that's cheap.
$15 million.
$15 million.
Yeah.
So if you got that kind of money, and I cannot
That's
imagine.
Still cheaper than going to space.
And can I just say this? I'm sorry. I know this sounds callous and cold, but nobody's life is worth $15 million to keep them going.
Mine might be.
Not even yours. Not even mine.
What?
What would you put the price at? That's a fascinating question.
Kevin, I would continue your life cycle for $100.
$100? What would you put your own at?
$25.
$25?
I don't got much going for me. So
I'm same here, but I'd at least get into the thousands.
No, I'm sorry, but I'm just like, so many more helpful things. More people could be helped with that money. I just think it's outrageous. Millions of dollars spent on one procedure for one person. I hate humans. I'm sorry.
This kind of reminds me of like my favorite drunken bar conversation that I like to have, or my drunken bar negotiating.
Okay.
I've done this a lot where I will start talking to somebody and ask them how much it would take for me to cut off one of their toes.
Okay. Which toe? Pinky?
Your choice.
Are we going
Your
pinky
choice.
toe?
Pinky toe is fine. How much would it take for me to get your pinky toe, John Long?
$500.
Pinky toe on the left foot, I would go $8,000.
Oh, wow.
$8,000 for a pinky toe.
You've placed a very high value.
You're
on that
real
pinky
proud
toe.
of that pinky toe.
Have you guys never negotiated anything? You don't start out low, you know? Right? You hadn't read Art of the Deal, okay?
Oh my God, you made a great point. You're right.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you $1,000 right now. You let me lop off that pinky toe.
I'd probably, on my left foot, I would let it go for $5,000.
$5,000. Mm-hmm. You'd go $4,500, I'm sure.
I'm going to stick at $5,000.
$5,000.
You're the guy who needs a toe. I'm the guy who's got a toe.
I don't need a toe.
Well,
You're going to
then
let me walk out that door over $500.
I'm not going to say, I mean, how bad do you need that toe?
I don't
What
know.
could you do
got to
with
flash
$4,500?
cash, you know? That's what it's got to come down to.
Hey, Kevin.
Uh-huh.
You know that little toe that I have? The little one?
Gnarled up, gross
It's not
little toe.
gnarled. It was just crossed because my shoe was tight that day. I would let you have that little toe for $4,500.
Now, $4,500 was John's price.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a famous toe. That's a Fringe Radio Network toe.
Granted. Okay.
You're not on any kind of radio network.
Right.
You don't get that kind of money for your toe.
Back to head transplant.
Okay.
Head transplants. That was an excellent segue, Tiny. Thermometers in the butts. Head's cooled. They start cutting through both of these patients.
Super sharp knife.
Super sharp knives.
Cranes.
The one with the donor body gets hooked up to a pump so that circulation keeps going through the body. The head with the viable brain that's going to be transplanted onto the body, you would think that they would do something similar to that. Do you know what they're going to do?
What are they going to do?
They're not going to keep circulation through that head. They're actually going to let all of the blood drain out of that head. And not only that, they're going to flush the head out, too, so that they don't leave any blood in there.
Huh.
And the reason they're doing that is because they're afraid of coagulation of the blood in that head.
Yeah, you get clots.
Yeah, just in that little period. So they're going to flush every bit of the blood out of it. And it's going to be cold, so it's going to be in this hypothermic state. But once they flush all this blood out and they cool it down, I mean, the clock's ticking at that point because they've got a brain. They've proven that a brain, that it won't start degrading to a point of causing any kind of serious damage for 45 minutes to an hour. Mm-hmm. But once you go past that, the brain starts degrading really rapidly to the point that if you take longer than that to complete this procedure, when the person wakes up, they're going to be a mess.
Is he going to cut both heads off? Or is he like, hey, assistant, you work on the dead guy, I'm going to work on the live guy? Or does he have like a simultaneous knife that's going to come down?
You have to use that sharp knife on both of them if you want to stick that banana back together.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Like, does he have two sharp knives? And he's like, I'm like, hey, Tiny, I'm lead surgeon. I'm working on the dude who's alive. You work on the brain dead guy.
He's got one really long knife.
He's going to put them side by side. Just like,
yeah. That's the only way you can get it straight.
I got you.
No, not really. There's going to be two teams of surgeons, and they're both going to have, there'll be a diamond knife guy on both teams.
I'd probably race. I'd be like, I bet you I beat you through this. I bet you I get my hair cut off before you.
I'd be like, John, it's not a race.
Like, everything's a competition.
I'm in the corner with like the donor's head, like, take good care of it.
You finish up first, you're like, messing around with it, you drop it. You know, oh, my bad. Kick it around the room. Yeah, sorry.
I'm over there trying
to get a little carried away.
I'm over there trying to sew it on a dog.
Use it as an ashtray.
I mean, why not use the other head for something?
Yeah, you got a perfectly good dead head there. I mean, you can do something with it. Can't just let it go to waste, throw it out or something. Yeah. Gotta do something with it.
I'm going to send this to your church.
They won't listen to it.
No, they won't. Nobody cares.
So what else happens during this procedure?
Where were we? Okay, so we cut off both the heads.
Yeah, both heads are cut off.
The brain dead head, just throw that in the garbage.
It's like soccer ball.
Yeah, soccer ball. They
It's
do
like
whatever
playing
they want to do
hacky
with that.
sack. That seems like we're done.
You spike it. And so then the brain alive head.
Okay. Yeah, a live head. Sorry, I'm getting us all off track here.
it's
but I'm fascinated with, like, what are you going to do with a dead head, you know?
They throw it away.
I'm sure they just, like,
it's
trash it.
biohazardous garbage.
You don't go old school and put it on a pike.
Oh, yeah. Like, stay out of my yard, neighbors.
They got a little tiny graveyard in the back where the headstones are real close together.
Maybe they give the head back to the family.
Oh, damn
Is that
it.
a bad
Did I just
idea?
make another pun? I said headstone. That's a pun.
That is a fun.
Damn it. I hate puns, and I've made 2 of them now.
That's not bad. If you could get, like, it in formaldehyde or whatever, just put it on the mantle, you know, like, oh, that's Uncle Joe. He donated his body to science, you know?
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to have a little severed head in here, to be honest. It'd be kind of cool.
Look, you need a head, I'll get you a head. I know a guy. Just let me know. All
I'm
right.
from Walker County. You need it.
That's right. Yeah, you're from Walker County.
I can get you a head. I bet I
We
can
might
get
know
a
the
head.
same guy. I'm just saying.
I bet I can get a head faster than you can get a head.
I don't know.
We should have a race. I guarantee I'll come back here with a severed head before you do.
I don't know if I'm going to participate, but I would sit here and watch.
It's going to be real suspicious when John comes back in 5 minutes.
Like, got one. I had it in the trunk all along.
Kevin's like, I was just kidding.
So I've completely derailed everything.
So we take the head with the viable brain, we put it onto this body, sewing up the veins and everything. We can do that for sure. And this is where the PEG comes into play. And what does that stand for again?
Polyethylene glycol.
Polyethylene glycol. Thank you, Tiny.
Very good. It's a good Steely Dan song, too, by the way.
And so the hope is that they apply the PEG to the spinal cord. Things kind of fuse back together. They don't believe that they're going to manage to achieve complete fusion with all of these fibers in the spinal column, but they do think that they're going to be able to get at least 20%. And they believe that this is enough that they can restore the majority of motor skills in the body. Now, after this procedure is done, this new person, that person's going to have to stay in bed, completely immobilized for at least a month. And the reason for that is that they want to give these fibers and the PEG time to do its work. And if the people start moving around too much,
Yeah,
they
you don't
might
want it to fall
compress
off.
these fibers. Yeah, it might
Gotta
fall
grow
off.
back.
Sit up a little too early.
Not only are they immobilized, I read that they actually keep them in a medically induced coma for a little bit too, because to wake up so soon after that surgery with your neck like that, they said would be too much for the human brain, the mind to handle. They would go crazy.
Canavero is not that concerned with the ethics behind this.
No.
I don't think, and he's not that concerned with the psychology behind this either. In his book, the only reason that he gives for this immobilization and for the medically induced coma is because if someone is awake, they're just naturally going to be fidgety or something. They might move around a little. They want them to not move at all.
The procedure that we were just talking about of the head transplant, Canavero calls this procedure heaven, which stands for head anastomosis venture.
I think that the him calling that heaven is either he's not considering the perception that he's putting out in the world of himself and what he's trying to do, or he's just blatantly trying to incite.
It seems like he just wants to see if he can do it. You know, like regardless of any consequences or anything like that. Like somewhere along the way, he's like, I bet you I could put a head on somebody else's body, and he just can't get it out of his mind. So he's just, full stop. I'm going to do it, regardless of ethical consequences or cost or anything else.
And we also very much live in a day and age where there's no such thing as bad publicity. So maybe him trying to portray Dr. Frankenstein, he thinks that that's going to get him noticed and possibly even funded.
Yeah, that might be what he's doing. I think that he is making himself look more unprofessional than he should be, because it's not as though, he is a professional. he worked for 22 years as a neurosurgeon. He's a brilliant guy, way smarter than I will ever be.
He could run our housing and urban development department.
But, I mean, the way he's presenting himself is kind of a caricature of himself. But I think Tiny might be right about that because, I mean, we might not be talking about this right now if he did not act that way.
Right.
That's very true.
And we're not millionaires, but people who are millionaires pay attention, and one of them might help fund some of the stuff that he's trying to do.
I don't stay up to date on like all the latest medical journals that come out.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise. But I do read articles that, hey, this surgeon thinks he can reattach a dude's head to another body, and that's how I know about him. So,
I need to say something. It's very important. Canavero says, and I quote, "I'm into life extension and breaching the wall between life and death. My goal is not curing spinal cord injury. It is not about curing medical conditions because there are not enough bodies. Even if you cure someone who's in bad shape, what about everyone else? Then you have to think about clones." And then Canavero said that he believes that one day humans will use full-body transplants to live forever by placing their aging heads on young, healthy bodies. He even suggests that we will probably have to use clone bodies for the full-body transplants or for good parts one day. Just like that movie, The Island, starring Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson. So what I'm so disturbed about is, A, who wants to fucking live forever? I don't. I can't wait to get off this planet. It's getting worse and worse. I'm sorry. I know that's so pessimistic.
No, I'm the same way,
But,
honestly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Who wants to extend this life? But more importantly, who wants to be walking around with an old ass head on a young hot body?
That's a very good point.
well, it beats
You
an
got your
old
liver
head.
spots all on your cheeks and stuff.
One word, Botox.
It beats an old head on an old body.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would totally. I mean, if they got this down, I'd absolutely do this. And if I was super rich and I could afford it, I would take advantage of this so bad. I would just
You'd plop down the money to go get Chris Hemsworth's body.
Oh, no. I asked Kevin earlier, whose body, an actor, would you put your head on? And eventually he came around to saying Alexander Skarsgård. And I said, that's a great choice.
All right, let's go around the room. Whose body would you take?
Well, I would say Thor, but if you've seen Endgame, I have Thor's body, so...
I haven't seen Endgame. Don't spoil anything.
Okay.
I haven't either.
Whose body?
That's a tough call because, I mean, pretty much hunky as it is.
That's the truth. I know you can't see on this podcast.
That's right. No one can see
Man
me.
is toned.
I'm gym rat is what they call it. He's always in there working out.
Would you put your head on like a super hot chick's body and then just look at yourself in the mirror?
Obviously he would.
We had talked about that. Like, actually, Alexander Skarsgård would be number 2 for me. First thing I would do, I would have a woman's body for a while. I just want to see what it's like.
And he described the woman's body that he would have in great detail. Well, I believe he said wayfish, but with a butt so round it wasn't right, or something.
What? So round it wasn't? No.
I like that line though. A butt so round is not right.
I'm going to go home and tell my wife that.
No, and you know, and I don't mean that just to be, you know, like, oh, I'm just gonna go look at my boobs, but I mean, that would be an experience that I will never have unless this head transplantation thing takes off and they get good at it.
I have a
That's
question.
the only way I can ever do this.
I have a question. Can I put my head on a child's body?
Totally.
Oh yeah, that would be wild. You know, that would be wild.
It'd be like Benjamin Button.
That would be, yeah.
Like, what age are you talking about?
I'm talking about, like, I want to put my head on an 11-year-old's body.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like a 3-year-old's body.
Yeah, I was there.
All right. Yes.
I was thinking human bobblehead.
Why an 11-year-old?
I don't know. That sounds like a good age for me to get away with stuff.
Yeah.
Like hide and go hunch?
Yes,
Is
I
that
wanted
what
to be
you're-
old enough to hide and go hunt.
Oh.
Although that started when I was very young, as you guys know.
I tried to play that with my wife the other night. She wasn't into it. Totally wasn't into it.
Is there a particular 11-year-old you'd like to put your head on?
No, actually, I'm taking that back. For real, if I had to pick a body, it would be Gina Davis circa 1988.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I was rethinking mine too. Secretariat. That's a wild one. Like a horseman,
Is that
a minotaur,
A Senator.
a centaur. Yeah.
Oh, this
The centaur.
changes everything.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. I hadn't
Thoroughbreds
even
have
considered this.
the life, though. You know, they like win the Triple Crown, and then they just go and live in a pasture for the rest of their life. They don't have to do anything else ever again except sell their sperm. So, I have great sperm, by the way. My kids are awesome.
Like, you mean the consistency or what?
Everything.
You know?
I mean, my offspring are really awesome kids. So,
The quantity and quality is
yeah,
very good.
right, yeah, yeah, great sperm. I would put my sperm up against anyone.
Against anybody. I would put it on anybody. That's what I heard. By the way, I would not put my head on it. Like, if I could do this twice, woman the first time, then Alexander Skarsgård. I wouldn't want to just stay the woman.
I don't think that I would want to go with a woman, though.
You wouldn't even want to know what it was like for a little while.
I mean,
Do you want to get your first period?
no, I don't want to. I have an 11-year-old girl in my house who's gotten hers, so been dealing with that.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, oh yeah, it is. It is. And
When I was little, before I ever started my period, which was when I was in 6th grade, but probably around 4th grade, my mom started letting me get these training pads. Which were like these little bitty tiny maxi pads with little designs on them.
Okay.
And just to practice putting them in my underwear.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I
Yeah,
didn't either.
It is. Mm-hmm.
that would have been good to know. Yeah. No, I had to take pads to the elementary school, so because Zedra was at work and I got a call. So I had to like go and buy them and go up to school. And, you know, like how awkward is that? Like, she's my foster daughter too, so I'm not even like her real I'm not even the same color as her. And I like have to go up to the office with like a bag of maxi pads. Hey, little buddy that's been living with us for like a month and a half. I got your stuff here. And
If I was another parent, like standing in the lunchroom or something, I'd be like, look at that creep.
it's weird. He's just up here giving away sanitary napkins to random kids.
Oh my God. I've got this friend, John, but we went to this crawfish bowl and he brought his like 11-year-old daughter there and they roughhouse a lot, you know, they wrestle and things. And they were out there wrestling at this crawfish bowl and somebody came up and I was like, he just met that girl a little while ago here. I don't know whose kid that is.
This dude's just wrestling
Now they're
a
over there
child.
wrestling around and, you know, like,
That's amazing. Oh, that dude's a weirdo. He's wrestling random kids. He told me when he got here he hated kids.
Hey, did you guys know that in Vienna on November 17th, Sergio Canavero, at a conference in Vienna, he claims to have successfully carried out the world's first head transplant on a human corpse. He pointed out that the transplant surgery can take place in 18 hours, or it did, on this cadaver. And that's exactly the amount of time that he originally thought it would take to do this on live human donors. Canavero did not offer any proof of this actual head transplant on the cadaver, though, when asked.
I feel like I could do one on a corpse.
Yeah.
You know? A lot less pressure.
Yeah, the polyethylene glycol, we're just going to get some crazy glue.
That's right. You're like, man, you could do that in my garage. You know?
he's still dead. Worked.
Yeah. He's still dead, but he's got a new head on him. So everything was successful.
You know, people keep saying that he's not providing proof for these things. You know, so they transplanted the head of a monkey. They did the same thing that Dr. White did.
Yes.
And they got a lot of flack because all they released was a picture of the monkey with the sutures around its neck.
I would not have released that.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, because if you look at all the flack that Dr. White got from that video of the head transplant, the living head on the monkey that he transplanted that onto, I know that he's looking for publicity, but I think that is a thing too far for them. And also, everybody's claiming that he's not providing proof for these things. He's presenting his papers and his research.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of animal experiments.
I don't think he's making things up.
Right.
I don't think that they're not doing the things that they're saying
I believe
that they're
he's
doing.
this. In 2017, in a paper he published in a medical journal, he claimed that he severed the spines of several mice and reattached their spines using his special polyethylene glycol glue.
Special sauce.
His special sauce. And it worked. He was able to fuse their spines back together. But now, a University of Cambridge neurosurgery professor, John Pickard, he says that the journal in which Canavero's studies were published for this particular mice reattachment spinal surgeries is a total red flag because the journal itself is not very respectable. And
What's the name of the journal?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Head transplant.
Can't tell you.
Overdrive
Sergio.
Trucker magazine.
Sergio Canavero's Journal of Science.
Yeah, and this doctor from Cambridge says that he just doesn't think that Canavero has actually done the science for this, which that's debatable. I think he has.
Wait, who says this?
Dr. John Pickard from the University of Cambridge. He's a neurosurgery professor.
No.
He says that he doesn't actually think Canavero has done the science, that he is kind of making this stuff up. But, you know, if you read the papers that Canavero has published, his studies, I mean, there's absolutely evidence of the two-headed mice that he has created.
Canavero's detractors, one of which is ethics professor from Emory, Dr. Paul Wolpe. I guess ethicists are something that we need so that people like me don't just, you know, because
Go to sticking heads on everything.
yeah, I mean, I would totally, you know, not the animal research, but I am totally on the page of you do with your body whatever you want to do with your body. I mean, you know, you don't go knocking people out and taking their bodies, but if somebody's done living, or especially if somebody has some kind of disease, something that's going to kill them anyway, and they want to try this, just let them try it. And that's what bothers me about ethicists. Is that they're always, you know, they're
Lame down, man.
yeah, well, you know, there's just something to me innately infuriating about somebody who says, I know what everyone else needs to do, and that's exactly what ethicists do.
Absolutely.
But Dr. Wolpe at Emory had this paper where he was talking about the ethics of actually carrying something like this out. And there's two things that just really bug the shit out of me about what he wrote. The first thing is that there's a typo on the first page. And the second
You've
thing,
lost all credibility.
well, you know, and the second thing is, well, but he's talking about Canavero's credibility. Like, he is attacking the credibility of Canavero, and the paper that he wrote has a typo in it. And also, he gets onto Canavero a lot for citing his own work in the papers that he's putting out. And there's two things that bother me about that thing, and that's that Canavero and Xiaoping Ren, they're doing things that...
There's not a lot of other work to cite.
There's no other work to
right.
cite. I mean, if they're going to cite
Except
anything...
Dr. White.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, when you start talking about the fusing of the spinal cord, there's nothing else. Nobody else is doing this. What are they going to cite? And then the second problem I have is that this same guy, Dr. Wolpe, in the same paper where he's getting on to Canavero for doing this, he cites himself in that paper. You just look at the sources right there at the end. The W's. The conspiracy theory.
Okay. Have you guys heard about this? I have never played any of the Metal Gear Solid video games, but listen to this shit. There is an allegation against Sergio Canavero that apparently when he announced the upcoming surgery that he was going to do, you know, with Valerie Spiridonov, who had registered with him to be a part of this, it was a part of a huge marketing ploy to promote the Metal Gear Solid video game franchise. It was to promote Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, which came out in 2015, which is when Sergio announced this, that he was going to be doing this. Here are some clues.
I'm fascinated. I've played the Phantom Pain, so I'm fascinated.
Well, okay, well
to hear
then check this out. All right, first of all, in that game, did you notice a character that looks just like Dr. Sergio Canavero?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a doctor that looks just like him. Clue 1. Clue 2. Now, actually, Dr. Canavero was asked about why there is a character in this video game that looks just like him, and he says that he doesn't know how his likeness was used in the video game without his permission. He hypothesized that maybe it was possible that at his TED Talk, maybe there were video game developers from that franchise that had set up a bunch of cameras around and had videoed different angles of him to be able to create his image.
That kind of goes back to him having really no understanding of how to edit photos or do any any kind of digital manipulation because you would not have to set a bunch of cameras around a bald-headed guy with glasses to make a likeness of a bald-headed guy with glasses.
You just get an artist and hand him a picture.
All right.
You didn't have to just say, make us a bald-headed guy with glasses.
Yeah.
Put a black turtleneck on him.
Clue 2, did I mention Valery Spiridonov? He is a CG artist and video game development supervisor.
Interesting.
Okay, so Dr. Canavero's head transplant project is called Heaven, which is a reference to the bad guys in Metal Gear Solid.
They have a base that they refer to as Outer Heaven.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Tiny. Yeah, so what do you guys think about this?
Is the
It's
theory
totally
that
possible.
Metal Gear Solid was just basing a character on Canavero? Because
that's what it sounds like to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
Totally believable.
But the theory is that Dr. Canavero struck up a mutual agreement with the franchise owner, Hideo Kojima. I'm probably saying that wrong.
No, you got it right.
Thank you. So they think that the two of them came up with this mutual beneficial deal together to both give each other publicity and help each other's causes. Canavero was going to help promote Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, and thus he was going to get publicity too for his own head transplant surgery he wanted to do. Well, I came across this just today, and I was like, what? But it was from a reputable source.
No, it wasn't.
Shut up.
So even though Sergio Canavero's hopeful head transplantee backed out because of the quite attractive woman that he managed to snag, this has not discouraged Sergio Canavero or his partner Xiaoping Ren. They're still conducting experiments. Actually, just a couple of months ago, they came out with a new one, and they seem to be building on members within the surgical and scientific community who are kind of on their side, because this paper was co-authored with 15 other specialists in their areas, many of them neurosurgeons. So, if you're looking to get a head transplant, you can't do it yet, but we might not be that far off. That's going to do it for episode 13 of Where is the Line? I'd like to thank Christopher Tiny Sullivan and John Long from Earth Oddity for joining us today.
No, thank y'all so much for having us, because this was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It was.
appreciate
Thank you, guys.
If you enjoy unusual news stories, and if you'd like to hear those stories related to you by a pair of hilarious Alabamians, you can't do much better than Earth Oddity. They're omnipresent in the world of podcasts, so search for them on your favorite app, and they will be there. They release new episodes every week, and I wasn't lying when I said that I never miss one. If you enjoy our show, Where's the Line, maybe leave us a review. Reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook, or send us an email at info@whereistheline.net. That's what these exceptional people did. Caleb writes, "Hey Kevin and Sam, let's start by saying I love your show. You guys go over some super weird things that I really love. I'm actually not from America. I'm from South Africa, so I don't think I could get a coffee mug anytime soon. I came across your show whilst I was looking for information on Michael Taylor, and the podcast immediately felt homely. I immediately got a bag of chips, opened Facebook, and scrolled while listening. That was on Sunday night. It's Wednesday now, and I've listened to all of your podcasts on Spotify. Amazing work. I love the amount of detail that goes into the research, like with the triple ripple butt plug and the BME Pain Olympics. My favorite episode was the one about Catherine Knight. Anyways, I'm babbling now. Love the good work between Sam and you, and I hope to hear Jamie again in the future. P.S. You might want to look into the life of Dr. Joseph Mengele. It'll make for an interesting future episode."
Hey, that was awesome. Thank you, Caleb.
I'm so excited to have someone from South Africa listening to our show. That's just amazing.
I know, me too.
I feel bad that I couldn't send Caleb a coffee mug. I did get his address, though, and I sent him some stickers. I hope they made it, Caleb. I'm not sure that we'll do a show on Joseph Mengele, but I was talking with Caleb, and he let me in on a South African story that I am actually very interested in looking into. You'll have to wait to find out what that is, though. Caleb, if you're listening, don't tell anybody about that thing we talked about.
Yeah, Caleb, be quiet.
We actually got 2 really good suggestions since the last episode. The other one came from Mike from Nebraska, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But thanks, Mike from Nebraska. Both Caleb and Mike's suggestions are now in our folder of show ideas.
They certainly are.
Our next correspondence comes from R. R writes, "Hey, somebody must have a link to this prego porn that's so incredibly hot." Where is the Line is very close to the perfect podcast. I love it. Keep that shit up.
Wow.
Thank you so much, R. You are the perfect listener. His question about the prego porn was in reference to something Samantha said in episode 12 about a particular video that she enjoys during her alone time.
Yes, and R, I am carefully considering telling you what that might be. But as of now, it seems a little too intimate.
Maybe if you just told us a site that we could go to and maybe some search terms that might get us there.
Oh, I can absolutely do that.
Oh.
Go to X Hamster, which is my favorite site, and you might be able to find it by just typing in Japanese prego porn and put hotel room.
Everybody's going to be able to find it now for sure. I actually replied to Caleb and I told him, I've been asking Samantha what this video is, and I told Caleb, I was like, if she tells me, I'm going to tell you. So,
he will. And I have not told Kevin yet.
This next correspondence is from Ben. Ben writes, hey, great show. I'm on episode 3. I had heard both Travis the Chimp and Catherine Knight on last podcast on the left, so a new subject is always interesting. All I'm curious about, though, at the moment, is your theme song. Who is it by, and do they have more music? I got back in touch with Ben to let him know that he could listen to Monster Party by Jim in its entirety, along with the rest of the album on Spotify, and you can too. If you'd like one of those old-timey compact discs, though, you can buy one from our website, where'stheline.net. Our last email is an older one that we didn't get to last time because we were too excited about all of the voicemail messages that we had gotten.
Oh, yes.
This is from Adriana. Adriana writes, hey, Kevin, thank you for the reply and the shout-out on the podcast. I checked my spam folder and found your response. Samantha is absolutely fantastic and has a wicked sense of humor.
Aww.
She is a great addition to an already fantastic show. Congrats on 11 episodes. I'm anxiously awaiting episode 12.
Thank you.
I told Adriana after I got that Samantha would be absolutely glowing when she read it, and she was.
I certainly was. It's absolutely what I needed to hear. Thank you.
I forwarded that to you, and I think you sent me like an entire paragraph reply.
I did.
About how happy you were about that email.
I was super stoked. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adriana. And you have now been shouted out twice. Finally, we got a voicemail. This is Amber's second time calling in.
Oh.
Keep them coming, Amber, and we'll keep playing them.
Hey, Kevin and Samantha. It's Amber in Alabama again. And I almost forgot to call you guys, but I remembered it when I was just laying here thinking about things. And I think we should come up with, you said, come to Tuscaloosa, come to T-Town, and we have a drink and talk about disgusting things. But we got to come up with a drink called Where's the Line? And that drink has to push the line of where is the line. And when we drink the Where is the Line drink, we'll discuss your eyebrows and mine too, because they are crazy. Love you guys. Love your podcast. I'm sorry I sound so very, very white trashy, but I'm really not. We're going to trademark and patent a Where's the Line drink, and it's going to look bloody and disgusting, but it's going to taste like the nectar of the gods. Bye.
I love the idea of having a Where's the Line drink.
Oh my goodness.
Amber sounds a little tipsy to me in that voicemail.
Yeah, I think she was really feeling herself.
I think that might be the first time someone has drunk dialed Where's the Line. She was probably just tired, but if she did drunk dial us, I love that.
I do too. She's delightful.
So next time you get shit-faced, pull your phone out and dial 386-227-7848. That spells out something, doesn't it?
Dumb ass tit.
I feel like our listeners, much like ourselves, might enjoy to turn the bottle up every now and then.
Yeah.
So the next time you have one too many, be sure to dial 386-227-7848. What does that spell again?
Dumb ass tit.
And Amber, if you're listening, we're ready for that drink whenever you are. Just come to Tuscaloosa.
Absolutely.
Speaking of getting a drink, I finally found someone to grab around with while I'm in Orlando next month.
Oh.
Corey lives near there and has indicated to me that we can hang out together while I'm down there.
Oh my gosh, you finally found someone to drive you around.
I'm so excited. I'll be in Orlando from August 12th to the 16th, so if you live nearby or if you happen to be going to Podcast Movement this year, let let me know. I sent Corey a mug, and she sent us back a fantastic photo that you can see on our website or on our Facebook group. I was really excited about that. Thanks for that, Corey, and I'll see you next month, unless you get creeped out by me before then, which I could understand. No hard feelings if that happens.
Yeah, it's a common occurrence.
It's not that common. As we mentioned at the top of the show, new episodes of Where's the Line will now drop on the 13th of every month. That seems like an appropriate number for our show.
I think so. And one time, it might be on a Friday.
Oh, we'll have to do a special episode for that.
Yes, we'll have to make sure we look at the calendar.
That's it. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back the next time your calendar strikes 13.
Goodbye.
Kids, when you go to bed, stay away from your closets and don't look under